Welcome to RPG Book Club, the Christmas special, part 1. I should have wrote an intro, but I didn't because it's Christmas and I was doing Christmassy shit instead. I am Sam Allman.
Let's hear these sleigh bells ringling, ding, ding, ding-a-ling, do. Come on, it's lovely weather for a sleigh ride together with you. It's Christmas.
And I'm David Bernard Houck.
You said you didn't do an intro, so I gave you an intro.
We will be playing the first half of Parasite Eve, the diehard of video game Christmas games. And before we get to all of that, let's talk about our weeks, since these are replacing regular episodes since Eli is out of town for 2 weeks.
Yep, they were going to be bonus episodes, but frankly, we didn't have time for that. Nope. Just like every year.
Every year.
For the record, we've been meaning to do Parasite Eve for Christmas literally since our first year. But
since our first episode.
The holiday season is busy. So as you'd expect, we tend to not have time for bonus episodes. Although we did do a Christmas bonus our first year, right? What was that game?
Yeah, Shuggy the Christmas Elf.
Yo, that game slapped.
It was really good.
That game fucked. But anyway, yeah. So we're finally doing it in lieu of a regular episode.
Yeah.
I'll start with my week. My week was dope. I don't actually remember much that happened. I finished my Christmas shopping. I may have said that last week, but I for real finished my Christmas shopping this time. I actually got some the presents I got for locals I have received in the mail, and they just need to be wrapped. Well, one of them needs to be wrapped. The other one came pre-wrapped. Oh, I don't love the wrapping. I might redo it. We'll see. I love wrapping presents. And what else have I done this week? I've continued just doing just outrageous amounts of reading. I finally got, I believe I may have mentioned this because it's a nice thing that my friend did for me. I finally got my issue of Catalyst Catalyst academic journal of socialist theory. It's awesome. And just earlier today, I finished reading The Arab Thermidor by Anand Gopal. Just, if you have any interest in what the heck went on with the Arab Spring in the last decade, you should definitely read The Arab Thermidor by Anand Gopal. It's probably the best essay I've read all year, and I've been reading a lot of essays. It also is an incredible look at just sort of like how labor interacts with politics, rank and file strategy, and a good companion piece to the classic liberalism, ultraleftism, or mass action by whoever wrote that. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that out there. I finished that an hour ago and have been thinking about it ever since. Final thing is I did a little bit of shopping for clothes, and that's fun. And that's it. I'm in the holiday mood. I am having a good ass time, and I'm also I love Parasite Eve. It's fucking fantastic. That's it for me.
Yeah, I just finished putting my kid today on the day of her birthday party. Her 4th birthday is on Tuesday, and we had a birthday party today where me and Summer woke up early, decked out the living room to look like the Mad Hatter's tea party room, and set up a whole tea party and everything. And we had Nutella crepes with strawberries for breakfast. We had chocolate cake that we had shaped to give bunny ears. And my absolute favorite part about it is so because I apparently only can conceive children on Mother's Day, and all of our all 3 of my kids' birthdays are in the last half of December or the first couple of days of January. It's all bundled up real close, which is horrible because that's when Christmas is. So the deal is everyone gets presents on Christmas. On your birthday, you in non-COVID years, we'll go out and do something special, and you'll get one big present. This year we had to bring it inside, so she had a tea party inside. But her big present was a Nintendo 2DS. Shit. It's the kick-ass clear navy blue one that I think originally came with Pokemon or Mario Kart on it, whichever one.
Wait,
but
the 2DS
that clear one,
XL with the hinge, or the cool wedge one?
The Cool Edge one.
What a wonderful console. Also, oh my God, you just opened the door for so many amazing games for that child.
Yeah, and so like I started the day where I'm like, hey, look, it's Nintendogs, and she got bored. And I'm like, whatever. And then we were like, oh, hey, look, here's your Barbie game. And we play that like she had played before, and I knew she liked. And we played a little bit, and she got bored and was whatever. And then we played Terraria together for 2.5 hours, and it felt like we had sat down and had just started playing Terraria, and then we blinked and like we had this entire cavern explored, and it had been 2.5 hours later because the Minecrafts, the genre, not the game. Minecrafts do that to you. You just suddenly just lose a whole day because there's something else you can keep on doing. Yeah, and so I have dreamed about sharing games with my kid forever, as you do when like you go through puberty and you realize that you might have kids one day, and then you look at a video game and you're like, holy shit, I can live vicariously through someone and like play Final Fantasy VII again because I can make a kid do it type thing. And like I got to do that today, and it was so cool, like beyond cool. Because like we had played Roblox together, and like we had like passed the controller stuff before, but this was like we were playing a game and like we were doing the thing. We weren't just like, it's like, yes, when we've played Mario, we've done the thing, but the thing is just run and jump. But like with Terraria, she's like, okay, we need to make a house, and now we need to go explore, and oh no, there's zombies in our house, and those sorts of things.
That's so cool.
It was so cool. Highly recommend having a 4-year-old. It's great. Everyone should do it. But other than that, I played Parasite Eve this week. It was good.
Bernard, what's up with you?
Yeah. My week started out great because I hung out with a friend. Neither of us have really hung out with a friend since the pandemic started. So it was very nice to see him. And we exchanged Christmas gifts and talked about stuff. And it was great seeing another person and interacting with them. Love it. Love to do that.
It really does rule.
And then I spent most of my free time this week playing Paradise Killer on the Nintendo Switch, a murder mystery video game completely unlike any other murder mystery video game I've ever played. It's incredible. Everyone in it is fucking hot, and I highly recommend it.
Hell yeah.
And then I started playing Hades, another game in which everyone's hot, and it's okay. I'm having a good time. It hasn't like really grabbed me, but yeah, pretty much all I have going on in my life is video games.
Yeah, I really want to play Hades, not because like I like roguelikes or even any of the things that it has put together, but because I've read so many people that are like, I don't like roguelikes or anything that Hades has to offer, and Hades is my game of the year. And I just I just want to
I've read that, but also it's just like I don't know, man. I don't know. Most of what I've seen is just queers saying that the characters are hot and that it's got gay stuff in it, which like I don't care. I don't know. I'm not 5 years old. Okay. I don't just see a thing that looks like me and okay, that sounds really condescending.
That does sound really condescending.
I didn't mean that condescendingly. And frankly, I do that sometimes, but I it's not that I'm not 5 years old. It's just that my brain doesn't work that way. I don't give a shit that it's got gay stuff in it, or that the characters are hot. And frankly, I'm already seeing the pictures of the characters on the internet anyway, and I'm enjoying looking at the pictures. But yeah, like, it's a roguelite, you know? I like games that have levels, but also, more importantly, I don't like action games that you play with a mouse.
You can play this with a controller.
I've heard that it's not really designed for it. Because I tried playing Bastion with a controller.
It's working great with a controller for me.
Oh, you're playing with a controller? Okay, cool. Well, maybe I'll play it.
Yes.
I just know that I played Bastion and was like, this is super well made. Don't like this kind of game.
Yeah. I don't know. I run in a direction and press the attack button, and I attack in the direction I'm running.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's more that games like that, at least Bastion, and the other one, Transistor, it just felt very yeah, I mean, it's not God Hand, right, as far as action games goes. Anyway, I might play it. I might not. I'm too broke. I've already been I've been thrift shopping twice this week when I'm not supposed to because I don't have it in the budget, so I probably can't buy Hades.
Yeah.
You'll just continue hating on it without having played it or having any particular reason to do so.
Yep.
It's because we are semi-public figures in the gaming space, so all we have to do is hate.
Besides, we all know that Final Fantasy VII Remake is Game of the Year.
It's still my Game of the Year.
It's so good.
Although I can't believe it, but Paradise Killer is best soundtrack of the year for me.
You know what? I listened to the one track you sent, and wow.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
I wouldn't put it over FF7R, but you've played the entire game and I haven't, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of great soundtracks, let's listen to some Parasite Eve music, and then let's talk about the game.
Yes.
Too much about this. I don't know who the dev team was for it, but it came out in 1990.
The opening video says that it's all of our favorites all work together on it.
Cool. All of our faves are implicated. No, all of our faves work together on it. It also, part of the lore behind this game is that it was for a brief time a pitch for Final Fantasy VII. Someone was like, yo, what if the new Final Fantasy game took place in goddamn New York City and the main character was like a cop, which is a hilarious idea. Mm-hmm. But Square did what they did at that time, which is every time basically, I feel like all they ever did was try to think of new ideas for a Final Fantasy game, and then whoever thought of the latest insane idea, instead of just saying no, like most game studios would, they say no, but here's a bunch of money, go make it anyway, just don't call it Final Fantasy VII. So this game,
it's more than just all of our favies. It is every single favie we've ever loved. It is directed by Takashi Tokita, aka the lead designer of Final Fantasy IV.
Wow.
It is produced by Hironobu Sakaguchi to Hironobu Sakaguchi. Its designers is Yoshihiko Maekawa, who doesn't have a wiki page, so I don't know if they've done other things.
I recognize that name. Whatever.
The lead character artist is Tetsuya Nomura, of course.
Yeah, obviously.
The writers are the novelist was Hideaki Sena, and the adapter was Takashi Tokita, and the composers was Yoko Shimomura. So
hell yeah,
it's a dream team. So it's good.
So it's an awesome game. What is this game? People say it's sort of Square's answer to Resident Evil. And in a sense, it is, because Resident Evil was a fucking sensation, right? So you got 3D characters, pre-rendered backgrounds, spooky monsters, basically. However, I'd forgotten that it's really much more than that. It is Square's answer to Resident Evil by way of every 80s action movie. It's got...
it is Final Fantasy Die Hard.
But it's not even just that. That would already be good enough. It's Final Fantasy Die Hard, but honestly, more than that even. It's Final Fantasy John Carpenter. Yeah. It's Final Fantasy The Thing. It's Final Fantasy Escape from New York. I see The Thing in this game. I see Escape from New York in this game. I see Prince of Darkness in this game. And then also, it's even 70s cop movie as well. So it's just like, it is a love letter to American action thriller cinema of the 70s and 80s. So yeah, that's where we're at. Okay, so
but it does also have some Resident Evil DNA in it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. It's all of those things at once. It's actually, the game feels very cohesive, which is funny when you think of what I just said as being 100% true, which it is.
It definitely has a lot of influences, but it does succeed in being a single idea.
Yeah, you might say it takes all those influences and melts them down into sort of a goop and then forms them into a new being.
Yes.
I was going to say that it's a well composed dish, but yeah, let's use the goop thing because that FMV will haunt me for the rest of my whole entire
The
life.
FMVs in this game are gross.
Yeah. So speaking of FMVs, we got the intro FMV. It's fucking awesome.
Yes.
This game takes from this. The FMV doesn't show much. All we know is the game takes place in New York City. We know that the main character seems to be a blonde lady with a bob cut, and the villain might be a sexy Ultimisia-ass lady with red hair. There's lots of fucked up imagery and body horror shit. Also, the music by the always incredible Yoko Shimomura is a total banger. All right, let's get started. So, intro cutscene, Christmas. It is Christmas Eve, 1997. Oh, sorry, I hate to already get off topic, but you know how the whole like Die Hard Christmas movie thing? Why do people say that so much when instead they could be saying every single Shane Black film is a Christmas movie? Because it is, and it's amazing. So like if you're tired of watching Die Hard every year, or you want to watch something else in addition to Die Hard, because it does rule, try Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, or The Nice Guys, or Iron Man 3, or I think one of the Lethal Weapons, or I think like 2 more of his movies that I haven't seen that take place on Christmas. The dude loves Christmas, and all of his movies are great. So anyway, going on. It is Christmas Eve. It is 1997. New York City is covered in snow. On a busy street, crowds pass this way and that, most passing, but some entering a stately theater. This is actually meant to be Carnegie Hall. We find out later. Sometime later, a limousine pulls up, and from it emerge a suited man and a blonde woman in a beautiful asymmetric black cocktail dress. Where to cop? The man says...
The cop's right there.
The man says, we're going to be late. We name the woman Bulma Bria. NYPD, 25 years old. Her actual name is Aya. I would love to just call her Bulma exclusively, but... I feel like I should probably tell y'all her name is Aya Bria. She's really hot. Anyway,
I tweeted Aya cops are Brea, and I was really proud of that.
It's pretty funny. Oh yeah, in the tradition of cop movies, we do need to pretend cops are good for the duration of this game, okay?
Daniel might make that hard occasionally.
That's true. So Bulma has taken the night off from stop and frisking minorities to go on a date with a man we know isn't important because the game just calls him Man. She's in a sullen mood, but tries to cheer herself up. Bulma enters the theater. Sure enough, the first act of the opera has already started. They hurry past the doorman and quietly take their seats. On
also,
the stage,
just so you know, I don't know if you've ever been to an opera, but that's one of the most rudest things you can do is open the goddamn doors to an opera. You wait till the intermission. If you're late, don't go in.
Yeah, you're not supposed to do it. Best
Rude.
case scenario, and ask the doorman for this if this is an option. Best case scenario, you do open the door, and there's like a little area in the back where you can stand, where that would depend on the theater. But yeah, don't do that. On the other hand, they're cops, and this is their big night out, so fuck it. Also, frankly, like, fuck sophisticated classical music etiquette. It's dumb, and is one of the main reasons why normal people think that classical music isn't for them. Because it's all this bougie upper class, like, etiquette rules. If we got rid of all that shit, more people would actually feel okay going to an opera every now and then, personally, is what I think about that.
But there'd be more boorish displays at the opera.
Yeah. Back in the classical days of classical and romantic music, there were always boorish displays, and it was great. Back in the day, no, so this is actually true, musicologically. Back in, like, Mozart or Beethoven's time, if something happened in the music that you liked in the middle of the music, you would clap. And if something happened that you didn't like, you would boo. in the middle of the thing. Nowadays, the only time you're allowed to clap in the middle of music is at the end of a jazz solo. And, like, yeah, it's still good that you clap at the end of a jazz solo, but it's still like a rule you have to learn. It can't just be like, hey, if something cool happens, go, yeah, hell yeah, that was great. Hell yeah, love that chord change. Great job, Beethoven. Or more likely, boo, Beethoven, you started that bass line a measure early in your Fifth Symphony and it was out of key and you've just broken all the rules of music and I'm angry about it. Or if you're Beethoven a week later, and I'm happy about it. Anyway, Bulma breaks the rules of the theater. First act has already started. They hurry past the doorman and take their seats. On the stage is a typical royal drama of some variety, starring a beautiful, tall, intimidating redhead. But before long, the game becomes a foof. In the middle of her aria, the leading lady, playing a character named Eve, suddenly sees Bulma in the crowd and locks eyes with her. Electricity. They share lesbian feelings. Suddenly, the actors behind her burst into flames. Literally. Then people in the audience. Random things start catching on fire for no reason, and chaos erupts. The crowd starts screaming and evacuating, but Bulma keeps her cool. She orders her lame-ass boyfriend to get the fuck out of here, draws her gun, and approaches the stage. Here I do want to mention, the FMVs in this game, I don't think hold up very well. I don't think they hold up as well as the ones in, say, FF8, which was made around the same time, probably because FF8 had a much larger budget. The FMVs look fucking weird, but the in-game scenes look phenomenal. All of the in-game cutscenes are just jaw-droppingly well executed. And I actually much prefer it when they're doing that instead of having FMVs, which is good because there actually aren't a shit ton of FMVs. Anyway,
the FMVs hold up the best when they're doing weird, gross stuff. But like every time it's just like a human emoting, I'm like, I guess that's what's happening.
Yeah, like when they were doing the fake opera, like FF6, FF9 style with just the CG models, it was great. And then when it switched to the FMV, it wasn't as good. Anyway. Bulma ascends to the stage and Eve speaks to her. She says, "You're the only one who wasn't affected." What does this mean? She says, "You ought to know the reason." We're going to have a lot of this. Bulma gets a brief and unhelpful flashback of what might be herself as a child in a hospital room, but nothing further. We have our first combat encounter. I think I'll talk about the combat a little later, not right now. After shooting Eve a few times, she uses some strange power on us, and we see that we now have something called PE, Parasite Energy, aka magic, though we can't use it. After a few more rounds of combat, Eve exits stage left. That's not a joke. She does actually exit stage. No, she doesn't. She exits stage right.
She exits stage right. Yeah.
She does, in fact. Anyway, Bulma pursues. Damn it, I wrote that wrong because I didn't think about it. It's the left side of the screen, but that's
we're
not
seeing it from
left.
the audience perspective.
She leaves on the starboard side. They should say that instead. Anyway, Bulma pursues. Backstage, there's a huge hole in the ground. Bulma hears her backup approaching, but there's no time to wait. She jumps down. She finds herself in, I guess, the theater's basement with, like, dressing rooms and stuff. Oh, also, she briefly glimpses what might be glimpses the little girl she saw in her vision. The girl's obviously a ghost, but Bulma doesn't realize this. So she's like, I'm going to chase the little girl. Most doors are locked. She makes her way down and sees... Oh, it's just a rat. This is New York. And then the rat transforms into a gross mutant. It's fucking sick as hell and disgusting. Again, very John Carpenter. And we fight it, but it's easy. Next room.
The gross-ass FMVs are incredible.
Yeah, they're really gross.
Still really gross in 2020.
And like they get grosser too. Next room, we learn from a near-dead, burned-alive Husk that the name of Eve's actress is Melissa, which is funny for one of our hosts. Bulma also finds a phone and decides she has to call NYPD headquarters and fill them in on what's going on, aka save her game. What were you going to say, Sam?
I was laughing, but speaking about the phones, so this scene establishes that the in-game reason why she's stopping all these phones is to report back to the police department. So the fact that there's a save point at the police department at your desk is hilarious to me. It's like you're calling Daniel, who's 5 feet from you, and you call him on the phone to be like, hey, so yeah, today I had a really long day and this is what happened. He's like, I know, I was fucking there. I'm here right now. And
maybe you're calling the police department's recording secretary, who is in a room that is not a place you can go in the game. Anyway, thankfully they didn't. So let's talk about the battle system. Now's a good time to talk about it. So the battle system, I think, is a lot of fun. It's not too different from, say, Vagrant Story. So when battles, so first of all, battles, they're not random battles. People would call them random battles. They'd be wrong. They are not visible on screen, forced battles. I guess there's a little bit of randomness, but on every screen, there's basically one battle per screen. There could be a screen with more than one battle, but like, I wasn't, if that happened, I didn't notice. Pretty much every screen has precisely one battle on it, or zero. And the first time you enter the screen, you always have a battle. Subsequent times, if you're backtracking, you might have a battle. They might actually run out as well, because I remember I would think, oh, I get a battle every time I'm here, and then all of a sudden I would just stop having them, which could just be RNG, or they like deplete.
It's probably not like pity timer RNG, where like it's less likely the more times. Because I also noticed the same thing. I was like, God damn it, if I have to leave to go back to the clown's room again and have to fight the same mob, I'll be so pissed. And then it didn't happen, and then like 3 times later it did happen again. So I think it's like less likely.
Yeah, maybe it's like if you literally were just here and then realized you took a wrong turn, we're not going to punish you by making you fight again or something like that. Maybe Kingdom Hearts should take notes. Anyway, so yeah, it's they're not random battles. So you're going through the battle, and at a certain spot on the screen like flashes colors real quick, and then the enemies do appear. And then you and the enemies run around in real time. So it's ATB, but you run around, and the enemies attack, and you have to dodge their attacks. It's really cool. Sometimes they shoot projectiles.
It reminded me a lot of Undertale. Like,
Yep. Early on,
like,
one of the first enemies shoots the rat enemy shoots like 3 fireballs, and it's like, oh, it's like a slow motion bullet hell Undertale thing. Sadly, not enough of the enemies shoot projectiles. A lot of the enemies just do melee attacks, and some of the attacks are kind of badly designed and really hard to dodge. Like later, we're going to get an enemy that does an area attack that is
the purple
almost, that is almost the entire area of the battlefield.
Can you dodge that? Is it possible?
If they're like on the bottom right corner of the battlefield and you're like on the top left corner of the battlefield, you will be out of range. Yes, but it's pretty unlikely.
It's bullshit. Especially because their wind up for that one is like half a second. So
So but for the most part, it's fun. And I think fairly designed. So you wait for your ATB to fill up while they attack you, and then once it fills up, you press X to open up your like wireframe. Actually, come to think of it, this game and Vagrant Story probably were cross-pollinating a lot during their developments, because they're both answers to like the Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid, how do we do cinematic narrative storytelling kind of thing. And they also literally have pressing X to open up a wireframe. So you open up a wireframe and you shoot the enemies with your gun. All attacks, you do have a melee, but for the most part, all combat is ranged in this game. And the space of your little sphere that opens up is your range, right? You can fire out of range, but it doesn't actually make you more likely to miss, or maybe it does, but it also does significantly less damage. So you're not going to shoot out of range. So as the game suggests, you gotta be close enough so that the enemies, close enough so that you can attack the enemies when it's your turn, but far enough away so that you can stay away from their attacks. And that's pretty much the whole game, is just be good at dodging attacks, hit them, and later you do get magic spells in the form of your parasite energy. It's not really magic, it's like, bullshit sci-fi. But That's pretty much it. And the game gets a lot of leverage out of this simplistic thing because you're like learning enemy patterns and stuff like that.
Like a lot like in Undertale, where in Undertale you have no attacks and they still somehow manage to make a whole game out of the different ways to dodge. And it's similar here where it's like on your turn, you're either going to heal, use your magic spell, or shoot all of your bullets into the guy's face. But all of the things around that make it really intriguing.
Yep. And there's a lot of smartness about like picking, if there's multiple enemies that are different types of enemy, picking which one to attack first. And part of that might be based on your own skill. If you're like, oh, I have a hard time dodging this attack, kill that one first, you know? The game does have ammo. So it's got a little bit of survival horror thing where you have ammo and also, health packs that you need to conserve, but the game is really liberal with both health and ammo, so you can really play it more like an action game. It's really not, it's not a fine-tuned clockwork terror device of resource conservation like Resident Evil.
It also has limited inventory space.
Yes.
And they sure give you enough medicine to fill up your inventory.
Yeah.
Yep. But once you realize you don't need it so much, you just start like, you know, you're not doing a good survival horror game when the item that you discard is your health items, which is what I would be doing, right? I'd be like, ooh, junk. I don't know what happens when I give the guy back at HQ junk, but it's probably something good. I should keep the junk. Anyway. So we find Melissa's diary. She's a young opera soprano who is super ambitious and would backstab anyone to get in the spotlight, which is to say, she's a soprano. She really wants the lead role in the Christmas opera, but she knows Suzanne is more likely to get the part. She trains so hard, but also her body seems to be getting sicker and sicker, and she's addicted to some kind of medication. She and Suzanne get double booked, but she wants the role all to herself. One day, on December 6th, Suzanne's entire apartment catches on fire and she dies. Melissa feels like somehow this is her fault for wanting the part and feels guilty. Note this is literally Melissa's diary, so we can probably trust that she didn't literally set Suzanne's house on fire. But hey, lead role. Despite fainting sometimes due to her rising body temperatures during rehearsals and increased abuse of her medicine, she makes it to opening night. December 23rd, aka yesterday. It goes well. Tomorrow is the big time Christmas Eve show, and then Christmas Day is a performance in the outdoor amphitheater in Central Park. Foreshadowing. She can't wait. Anyway, we enter a ballet rehearsal room, which we can tell, like it's got like a wood floor, a mirrored wall, a balance beam, and a grand piano. I just think that's neat. I've never seen a ballet studio / rehearsal room in a video game before. It's cool. Anyway, Melissa is at the piano. She seems to be struggling internally and says, no, she's Eve. After this point, she is exclusively referred to as Eve and will follow suit. We see the flashback again and nothing really new. She says something about blah, blah, blah. The reign of the nucleus has ended. It's time for the mitochondria to rule. Bulma forgot the one thing she was supposed to remember from biology class about the powerhouse of the cell and has no idea what Eve is talking about. We fight. She transforms into a huge fucking boss monster and roughs us up, but then runs away again, saying our mitochondria will awaken in due time. We pursue down another hole. Hey, it's the New York City, baby, #1. We see the little girl again, who is clearly a ghost, but Bulma doesn't realize this. And we follow her and we confront Eve, who basically says the same shit as before.
You did a bit there, but you didn't actually say we're in the sewers.
I did. I said it's the New York sewer, baby.
Oh, I thought you said it's the New York City, baby.
No,
I said New York City as well.
Oh, I said it's the New York sewer, baby. #1 sewer in the world. It's funny, this game start to sewer is really quick, but I don't really fault them for it because it's a sewer in a place that exists in real life. I don't know. It makes it different. In a fantasy game, it's like you could have invented anything and you invented a sewer. Whereas this, it's like, yeah, it's New York. Of course we're in the sewer. Anyway, we see the little girl again, who's again clearly a ghost. But Bulma's like, little girl, what are you doing down here? We follow her and we confront Eve, who says basically the same shit as before. Then she fucking transforms. Oh, in a CG video. also known as an FMV. She fucking transforms into goop. She goops through a grate, and then she reforms into the hot lady and leaves behind a boss for us. It's easy, though. Reporters have gathered outside Carnegie Hall as Bulma exits, and they're fucking hassling her. Suddenly, a cop car pulls up, and a burly black dude wearing a fancy suit and chomping a cigar comes out. Like, you know, that trope from 70s movies where the police chief and or the main character's partner is like that guy. It's that guy. Anyway, he goes up to the reporter and fucking slugs him.
Knocks him to the ground.
Knocks him all the way out of frame. It's hilarious, even though cops shouldn't do that. He says,
I mean, no one should do that.
Yeah, also, like, it is a little bit... Well, also, I gotta say, in defense of Daniel here, he didn't punch the person with the camera and say, you can't take videos of the cops, which is what real cops do. He punched the guy who was being really annoying and all up in his partner's face for being annoying and in his partner's face, which you still shouldn't do that, but it's a little different. At least he didn't, like, hey, give me your camera, you're under arrest now, right?
And then while still on camera, he's like, hey, here's my name and my face.
Yeah, he didn't, like, tear his badge off. Anyway, he says, come on, Bulma, let's get you back to the station. As they drive through the traffic back to HQ, Daniel, who I said here is probably the police chief, but no, it's Bulma's partner, presses her for info, but only gently. He seems very sweet. Bulma says he shouldn't be working on Christmas Eve. He should be spending time with his son. But he says his boy knows his daddy's a cop and that he's got to do his duty. We get an incredible rotating aerial shot of a 3D model of Manhattan as Bulma narrates. She tells us this was the first of 6 days that would put them all through hell. But for her, it was also 6 days filled with memories. Lesbian memories. No, actually, I think, I'm just guessing, I think Eve might be her sister, so maybe it's not a lesbian thing. I mean, it's not a lesbian thing. I'm reading that into it, but I'm saying it turns out they're sisters. It's going to make it weird, so whatever. Anyway, day 2. All rested up. Oh yeah, so this game is 6 days. We are doing days 1 through 3. I should have said that. Sorry.
We should have.
The days are very uneven in length, but the first 3 and the back 3 are about the same. So that works out. Because days 2 and 5 are super long, so each half is about the same. So anyway, the next day, Bulma wakes up. Or doesn't wake up, but it's the next day, and she's all rested up. And Bulma discusses the situation back at the station. Even though it seems crazy, Bulma insists that there is, in fact, something supernatural going on, or, like, not supernatural, but, you know, weird science shit, involving weird powers and maybe even ESP. The other cops actually believe her, going against sort of tropes, but they are at a loss as to how to fight something like that. Oh, also, turns out Melissa's apartment burned down later last night, so they couldn't inspect her place or learn anything about her or her medication. Also, she has no close friends or family. The police chief calls Bulma to his office and gives her a permit to upgrade her weapons, since she'll need it, and we get some tutorials. In the halls of the HQ, we meet a kid named Ben, who it turns out is Daniel's son. Turns out Ben is angry and hurt by his father always putting work over him. Daniel is like, I guess every kid needs a mother. And Bulma's like, no, you're just a bad dad. Like, literally, he's like, every kid needs a mother, aka, it's not my fault. It's just that the kid doesn't have a mom, so of course he's like this. And Bulma literally says, like, well, I grew up without a mom, and I'm fine, so I don't know what your deal is, dude.
And then he's like, oh, also, his mother is alive. Like...
Yeah, we find
obviously
out,
there's something going on there.
Yeah,
but
I forgot to share that, but yeah, they're divorced. Anyway, the press shows up and we give a conference. Though the police chief Baker tells us to let him do the talking, Bulma blabs about mitochondria and weird powers, and the press freaks out. Baker gets a mysterious call, but they hang up.
Baker being the police chief. I don't think you said his name earlier.
I did.
You did
too. Yeah,
did you?
The police chief. I don't remember. Baker. I didn't put a period on it, so I was probably quick about it. Anyway, I did. Police Chief Baker gets a mysterious call, but the person hangs up. Apparently they were blabbing about mitochondria, and also they had a Japanese accent, very heavy. One of the cops says that, speaking of mitochondria, he actually has paid attention in biology class, and he knows a researcher at the museum has a radical new theory about mitochondria. Bulma and Daniel leave to go to the museum and talk to this guy. Here, I will say, whenever Bulma and Daniel are driving their car, we get these fucking phenomenal, again, using pre-rendered graphics, close-ups of like in movies where it's like, here's a shot of the two of them in the car from the front, where you see, you know, in the background. In older movies, it would be a faked projection of like city streets. In modern movies, they typically do it in real life, or like a side view where you see Daniel, or you see Bulma closer to the camera and Daniel on the other side, right, with them talking. It does those shots. It's super cool, super cinematic. We love it.
So this game was billed as like in all the trailers and stuff, it was billed as the cinematic RPG from Squaresoft, and you can tell that like in Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, they were like, oh, just because like our engine is a top-down engine doesn't mean we can't move the camera. And so you have the opera and the like side-scrolling bits in Chrono Trigger where they're playing with what the camera could do. And then in Final Fantasy VII, they were like, oh, we can put the camera anywhere, but it didn't really make sense where they put the camera. They just were moving it all over the place in Final Fantasy VII. Here, they were like, oh, we can do like over-the-shoulder shots. In like there's a scene later when we're in Klomp's lab for the second time where like it just cuts every time the movie would cut, like a different person's talking.
That's an incredible scene.
It keeps going.
I actually comment on that in my notes. So this game, it clearly doesn't have the budget as FF8. So here's the thing: FF8 or even 9, but 8 more so. It shies away from, I guess, what you might call establishing shots. Like long shots, like FF7. Most areas, like most towns, are like one shot, right? It like your character is very small on the screen, and it's these big top down super zoomed out shots, which is really cool, and that is certainly an aesthetic, but it's and you know, it does a lot to, I think, set the mood of you being in this big oppressive environment, you know, of Midgar and stuff. But also it makes it not feel too different than FF6 because it's a top down scrolling camera, even though they can do a little bit more with it, right? FF8, you get very little of that. FF8, a typical town, is like a shit ton of close-up, usually ground-level shots of like you running away from the camera down a street. And then once you get to the end of the street, it'll change angles to like you're now at the intersection. And again, it's like your bird's eye level, right? Grim Fandango is similar to this, right? So every scene is a patchwork of close-up shots, like a movie. This game doesn't quite have the budget for that. It does generally stay on. It uses mostly establishing shots, which is to say, bird's eye, usually low angle. Like literally, imagine they're in a room, and imagine there's no roof on the room, and the camera is right like above the door. Like just a little bit above the door, right? Like sitting right on top of where the roof might be, looking down into the room with that angle. That's kind of the angle that you get. So you mostly get those angles, but then in cutscenes, they'll use lots of cutaway close-ups. So your gameplay doesn't involve generally navigation using this complex patchwork of close scenes that give the impression of the full space. But instead, you accent the establishing shots with close-ups. That's typically how it looks. So they did a lot with what is clearly not quite FF8 level budget, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, we go to the museum, which is naturally closed on account of it's literally Christmas Day now. Interesting that this game takes place around Christmas, but they didn't put the dramatic climax on Christmas. They put the second day of the story on Christmas. Kind of weird. Anyway, a guard lets us in to go talk with the scientist on the second floor, who's working obsessively. He's still there working. The scene where we talk to him is great. He's really weird, like being kind of combative and upset with us for being naive idiots. Like right off the bat, he's just like, oh, you people don't know anything, you know? And Daniel keeps getting mad at him for not being fucking helpful. The camera cuts between like 3 different shots very dramatically. Anyway, we learned that basically mitochondria aren't just the powerhouse of the cell. They are, in fact, their own organisms and predate the rest of the cell. They're capable of discharging huge amounts of electrical or heat energy, and, interestingly, they play a huge role in managing the development of the human body during gestation and youth, as well as playing a part in aging. Mitochondria and DNA are passed down. Mitochondrial DNA are passed down, and in 1987, the quote mitochondrial Eve, the first human, was discovered in Africa. The neat thing about this is all of that is true. Actually, that's all accurate science. None of that was made up shit. I know enough about science to know that that's all just an accurate description of what mitochondria are. They are really weird and really neat. They are their own little single-celled organisms. Basically, the first, what we consider a cell, happened when basically a different cell, this is very, very reductive, but basically a bigger cell ate a mitochondria, and we're like, okay, you're part of a bigger cell now. You're now the powerhouse of the cell instead of being your own little thing, right? Anyway.
I was looking at information about the novel that this game is a sequel to, and by all accounts, it sounds like it's a very good book. I want to read it. But one thing that I saw a lot of people praising about it is that it is based on a lot of like actual make sense stuff. It's not just complete nonsense.
Yeah. And at some point it's going to start being nonsense, but like it's all pretty reasonable.
Yes,
it's
very
like,
soon.
Yeah. Anyway, his theory is that mitochondria he says something about how mitochondria evolved 10 times as fast as normal organisms. I'm not sure if that's true or what exactly he means by that. It's kind of wishy-washy. But his theory is that mitochondria, because they evolved so much faster, think about it, they've been with us forever, but they evolved 10 times faster. So they would have evolved into being far more advanced than us. They've now developed advanced intelligence and can coordinate to do things like, say, set their host on fire. That's part of it's weird because it's like, I don't care how long you evolve, you can't do thinking if you don't have a brain and you are smaller than a cell, but whatever. Eventually he gets mad and tells us to leave, so we do, annoyed. We get a call. A breakthrough has been made at the HQ. Get back here. All right, so remember how there was going to be a performance of the opera in Central Park today? Well, obviously, since the leading lady, caught on fire and murdered a bunch of people, as they say, it was canceled. But the public is still gathering in the amphitheater anyway? Did they not get the memo? Anyway, oh no, that's where Daniel's kid and ex-wife were going. Fuck! Y'all rush there as fast as possible to save your kid, Daniel's kid and his ex-wife. When we get there, we don't see any people at all. So I'll go ahead and spoil this since it's kind of weird and confusing. Everyone is already in the amphitheater, and also they don't explain this, so it's not really a spoiler, but I think that the people who are there in some kind of mind control / subconscious way. It's not like they're all just idiots. All the people were somehow like drawn to go to the show.
I believe there are a couple things hinting at the idea that like just the people in Central Park were drawn to the amphitheater by Eve being magic.
Yeah. It's there are hints. It's just the hints are interspersed, so I thought I'd just say it now. That way we're not like, this makes no sense. Because it actually does make sense, though it's weird. Anyway, Daniel tries to rush into the park, but immediately his fucking arm catches fire. He backs up and pats out the fire. He can't proceed. Bulma must go it alone. Central's Park is a spooky, everything dead snow and ice forest dungeon with benches and fountains and walking paths and a zoo, and it's all deserted and scary. It's a real ass dungeon, and if you're me, I have a really good time going through it. Eventually, we reach the amphitheater and see it is fully seated. And Eve is just chilling on the stage, so everyone is just chilling in their seats looking at this hideous monster floating on the stage. Maybe they're also she's hot, which valid.
Eve is like a weird like mix of a dragon and Hexadecimal from Reboot. Like you put those together and make it a hot chick, and that's where you end up. And I probably would just chill watching her too.
Anyway, I believe the people here are being drawn against their will. As soon as Bulma shows up, Eve does a magic thing, and basically, okay, FMV time. Basically, everyone in the theater fucking liquefies. It's really, really gross. A dude's eye pops out, and goo gushes out of his eye socket. Eventually, everyone is literally just a red heap on the ground. We're like, okay. So we go around to the back door. One thing that's interesting is this game doesn't do the thing where characters talk to themselves, which I guess is good, because usually that's like really bad writing. But like Bulma is here alone, so she doesn't have someone to say, oh my god, this is horrifying. Like that's normally what I think you would expect. So she just has no reaction at all, because by Butchie, there's no one to react to, and we're controlling her. So anyway, we run around to the back door, go on stage, and confront Eve, but she just says the same cryptic shit as usual and runs off. We chase her and see the little girl again. We then chase the little girl through a huge, scary maze area. Like, we thought we were at the end of the dungeon, and we're not. This second area goes on for a long time, through forests and over bridges and down roads. It goes on so long that, like, I feel totally lost.
Yeah.
I'm like, we are so far away from where our original goal was. And there's lots of times when like the path splits, but I just go down one path, and instead of trying to be like, this game does a good job of showing you that like, no, you really don't need to fully explore things. It's okay. Like you don't need to get every treasure chest. Oh yeah, there are treasure chests, which is funny.
Earlier in the zoo, you like go into a bird exhibit and the glass is broken, and you just go in there and there's 3 chests that have like ammo and medicine for humans in them. They could at least
be like, they could at least just like put a cake in a trash can, like a dignified video game. Anyway, so we feel even more lost because after a certain point we've definitely lost sight of the girl and are just blindly charging farther and farther away from our previous location. This section does a great job of being super moody because, again, like, you're not going down every path. Every time you get to intersection, you're just kind of picking which one you feel like might be the right way, and you just keep going. It's really cool.
And meanwhile, Yoko's just like wailing on her MIDI keyboard.
The music's so fucking good.
Yes.
Anyway, eventually we have a real fucking boss battle.
Yes.
It's like a bunch of worms that come out of the ground. Like, the worms come out, they attack us. It's sort of like Zelda-esque. This is where it gets real Undertale-y. They shoot these projectiles, and the projectiles are like bombs. And when the bombs explode, they send like little pin pricks going in every direction in a starburst. We have to dodge them. This is the highlight of the game for me, gameplay wise. And
really one important thing about this battle system is that you can stop, and each gun has a different amount of bullets you can shoot in a turn. So at this point, you're probably using a gun that can shoot 2 bullets in a turn. But the thing is, shooting the bullets takes a significant amount of time. So if you choose to shoot 2 bullets in a turn, you're risking getting hit by a projectile that's being thrown. So depending on the situation, you might only want to shoot 1.
Yeah. The battle system pauses when you're selecting a target to shoot or in your menu to pick a spell, but once you start shooting, the game progresses, and most enemies don't really have knockback. So, like, while you're shooting, they're coming at you and will attack you. So, yeah, at this point, I had the ability to shoot 3 shots in a row. And it's like, not only is it dangerous, but a lot of these worms aren't out of the ground that long. So, like, doing 3 shots is literally a waste of time. So yeah, this battle is, like, teaching you, like, hey, if you only have time for 1 shot, just do 1 shot. Which is cool. Anyway, after that battle,
or it's saying the M16 is really strong, and I know why you want to use it, but seriously, just switch back to your SMG so you can get off more than 1 shot, because the M16 is so damn slow.
Yes,
but I got it in the bird exhibit, and I loved it, and I
it's really good.
Still use it like 2 whole dungeons later. Can't
I
stop,
don't
won't
change my
stop.
strategy unless it results in me dying, so I didn't change my strategy. I was like, this is probably not ideal. Also, changing weapons does take a whole, like, turn, right? And I didn't, I beat the battle on my first try, so I wasn't going to, like, change my equipment and try again. Anyway, we confront Eve again. She's floating in front of a horse-drawn carriage and says, seriously, you're still kicking? Okay, fine, get in the fucking carriage. Take a ride with me. We comply. Then, in a wild FMV, the horse catches on fire and takes off through the city streets. So we're on a literal, like a carriage flying through New York, from a flaming horse. It's very Metal Gear Solid 5. She asks us, why the fuck are we still siding with the humans? We're like, we're human? She says, you should side with me. If we joined forces, blah, 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 blah. We then have a boss fight, on the carriage. It fucking rules. It's a top-down angle where we're literally on a tiny little square where we can actually run around, where it's literally like the front and back seat of like, it's like a rather large carriage, right? But still, we have this, and she's like above us, like Z-axis, like above the camera, and then will like come down and attack us by flying. It's really cool. We have very little room to maneuver, but luckily the battle isn't very difficult, so it's not like this is like, yeah, she's hitting us a lot, but it's not too bad.
Counterpoint. Boss battle is way too hard to be right after a challenging boss battle with no save points in between, because she has AoE attacks that are bigger than the part that you can run. So if you don't spend all of your turns healing, she can kill you really quick the first time you get there, and then you have to go back and fight the worms again, and you have to go back and fight the worm. You beat the worms to your first try, but then because you died on Eve, you then had to face the worms like 5 times because you kept losing to the worms the second times.
Can you not backtrack after the worms?
You can, but I wasn't expecting there to be a boss battle right after.
But I know, but you said that you died to the worms 5 more times.
No, I died to the worms, not to Eve. I died to the worms 5 more times. Like all my retries were harder than my first time was.
I thought you were implying that you forgot to save after the worms 5 times, which is something I would do.
I definitely would do that, but that was not the case this time.
Okay, yeah, so maybe the battle's too hard. I found it pretty easy, but I don't know.
Yeah, you don't have to hit her very many times. It was like
you don't have to hit her very many
times. You had to hit her, but to get off those three turns accurately, you had to get lucky or have more healing left, which the second time I just had better healing when I got there.
Yep. Yeah, I believe I had like some heal level 3 potions that I don't think I even used, but I had them, so I was like, okay, I can use this if I need it, right?
Wouldn't it be great if they called them potions in this game?
Yes.
It'd be so good.
Anyway, after we defeat her, we ask again why we seem to be special, and she says we ought to know why. Don't we remember who she is? Bulma has another flashback to the hospital. The doctor is there again. Oh yeah, at this point I believe it's pretty clear that the doctor is the shitty researcher for the museum. It's kind of hard to tell because they just wear doctor clothes, but the height essentially works, even though you see them from behind. Like, I'm pretty sure that's the doctor. So we realize now that there are 2 hospital beds. There were always 2 hospital beds. The other one's empty. It's just that I don't feel like it had been conspicuous before, but this time, for some reason, I'm just very aware of the fact that there's 2 hospital beds. Then the reason
why you're aware of it is because the little ghost girl was in the other bed this time.
Well, actually, what's about to happen is the screen flashes, and now she's on the other bed.
Well, I thought that's what you're talking about.
To get to that part.
I didn't remember the flash. I just remember.
She's on like, one bed,
okay.
And then she switches to the other one, which is drawing attention to like there's 2 beds. So I'm guessing Eve was probably in the other bed, but is not appearing in our memories right now. Anyway, it's weird. So the carriage crashes, Eve flies off, and now we cut to Daniel. Ben shows up. Apparently, Ben and the mom, Lorraine, went to the concert, but the whole point was that his mom and dad were supposed to both go with him together as a family, damn it. So he didn't actually want to go in. But then the mom, quote, acted weird and went in. Basically, Ben is alive, but Lorraine is probably dead. back at the station.
It sounds like she was probably at the amphitheater and got gooed.
Exactly. I don't think it's 100% clear, but like that's what Daniel takes out of it, right? Back at the station,
and I mean, Ben comes home with us and hangs at the station instead of going home with his mom. So I think,
well, no. I mean, they also think. I'm saying, yeah, everyone thinks that she's dead. I'm just saying that the way that Ben describes it isn't like, "Hey, mom died." So anyway, back at the station, Daniel reports, and the police chief decides that they have to evacuate all of Manhattan. Daniel heads off because I guess this is an alternate world where when there's a serious threat to public safety, the government does the right thing.
Never heard of that.
Daniel heads off to find Bulma, who hasn't shown up yet. Ben doesn't want him to go, but he says Bulma is the only one who can stop the lady who killed your mom. Okay, then we have a really fucking good scene.
Who hurt his mom. He doesn't use the word kill because that would be a lot.
That'd be a lot for a kid, yeah. So anyway, next we have an amazing scene. So he's leaving, and he's like, "Hey, you, lady cop." She has a name, but I forget her name. "Hey, lady cop, you're a woman. Take care of my son." He leaves his lady cop in charge of Ben. And she's like, "I don't know what to do with the kid." So she's like, "Hey, you want to see a dog?" So she takes him to the room with the police kennel, which we could have gone to earlier in our exploration. And she literally is just like, "I'm going to open the door and you're going to pet the dog." And she does. She opens the door and the dog comes out and he's like, "Oh, hey, doggy. Oh, I love this little doggy." This scene is terrifying. Because the whole time you're like, that dog is going to turn into a fucking monster and eat this kid at some point in the game.
It's a really good model of a dog.
Yeah, it's a really good model of a dog. And it's a really good scary scene. The whole time I'm just like, "No, Ben, don't you dare get away from the dog. Don't you know what kind of story you're in?" But nothing bad
Also, the dog's name is Shiva.
Yeah, Sheeva, which is funny because it should have been named Cerberus anyway. I guess they didn't know that when they named her that.
This is the second sort of reference to something Final Fantasy-ish. What
was the first one?
The first one is when you're on the world map of Manhattan, and you're selecting a place to go. It's so cool. It does this dramatic zoom in.
It's so cool.
And when it zooms in on the museum, there's a big picture of a chocobo, and it says chocobo as one of the exhibits.
Nice.
That's cool.
Also, going back to the world map. You're on the world map, and you get to pick. It's a big rotating 3D Manhattan, and you get to pick your location. What's weird is there's like a helicopter noise while this is happening, and whenever you rotate the camera or pick a spot, it zooms in and you hear the helicopter sound go, which is like, yeah, I get it. We're in a helicopter, but it's like, wait, if this is like an aerial shot, like in a movie, when there's an aerial helicopter shot, you don't hear the helicopter. And we're not in it, and the characters aren't diegetically in a helicopter. We're driving somewhere in a car, so I don't know why there's a helicopter sound, but it's cool. So anyway, nothing bad happens to the kid. It's just a scary little setup scene. There's an FMV of a city being evacuated. Traffic is bumper to bumper on the bridges. Shots of empty streets. On one street, the cops have it blockaded, but a strange, nebbish-looking man appears. He has he has a thick Japanese accent, and the cops are jerks to him, telling him to shove off. One of them is nice and speaks Japanese to him. The other guy is racist and says, "If you can't talk the language, go back to your damn country." He's like, "You gotta let me through. You gotta let me through." It's like the Godzilla thing where I'm the scientist who clearly knows what's going on. One of the cops, the racist one, catches on fire.
You love to see it.
We love to see it. And the other cops are distracted, so the man slips through. Bulma awakes in an unknown location. Yes, we are still on day 2, folks. She's in a random shitty room, and then the Japanese guy comes in. His name is Nagito Komaeda. No, his name is Maeda. Daniel enters as well and says that Maeda found her and took her here. Maeda then explains some shit. So, he's like, "I heard that something was happening here," which is weird because it just happened yesterday, but whatever. He says this is similar to that thing that happened in Japan a few years ago, although it wasn't nearly as big a deal as this. And we're like, well, what is it?
He says it's not on such a grandiose scale. And I was like, I thought you had trouble with English. I thought that's like a thing people say about you, but you're using phrases like a grandiose scale. I
believe it might be implied that he just has a thick accent and the cop was being a jerk, but yeah, whatever. Yeah. So it all started when this is all quote, actually. This might be, I put quotes around this, though it also might be abbreviated. He says, it all started when a scientist's wife was in a car accident. The scientist tried to culture her liver cells in order to keep her alive. He called these cells Eve. Eventually, the mitochondria in the cells took over the wife's entire body, which mutated. After acquiring listen to the passive voice in this sentence. Actually, it's not actually passive voice now that I think about it, but listen to this writing. After acquiring the doctor's sperm, Eve tried to give birth to the ultimate being. That's a weird way of saying that the doctor fucked his mutant wife, which is what I think happened. I think that his wife came alive but was also a horrifying mitochondria freak beast, and he was like, I'm into it. So they fucked, or rather, Eve acquired the doctor's sperm in order to give birth to the ultimate being.
Shadow the Hedgehog.
Yes, but no, it gets weirder. Before she had died, the wife had registered as an organ donor, so her kidneys had been removed and were to be given to some young woman. Eve, whose body she needed to give birth because her body wouldn't last for more than a few days, implanted that fertilized egg in this young lady who, I believe the way it's written is like a teen, who apparently later gave birth to the ultimate being. He says, I found out about this, investigated, and then came here to continue my investigation. So, yeah, we got monster fucking, and then we got non-consensual impregnation of someone who was just getting a routine liver transplant.
Yeah, so while it is a love letter to American action movies, it's Japanese as fuck.
It is. My understanding is that, like, everything Maeda said, I think that's pretty much the plot of the novel. So it is the sequel to a Japanese horror novel.
Yes, 100%.
Bulma is really upset. She worries that she's a freak just like Eve and that she might like kill Daniel one day or something. Daniel says he trusts her because she's his partner and he'll never give up on the power of friendship, and then he leaves to give her space. She says that feeling I had ... was that Maya. Oh wait, I should have said was that her, except the game doesn't pull that bullshit. She actually says, what's that Maya? Then she says, but Maya died in that car accident with Mom all those years ago ... So we'll find out more about that later, and by later I mean next week because it doesn't come up again this week. Day 3. Okay, so day 3, we wake up in that same room and head outside. Maeda is chilling, doing some science stuff, and then Daniel drives up in his cop car. He says, damn, the whole city is empty. This is wild. Anyway, let's get some equipment. Turns out one screen to the right is a pharmacy, and one screen to the left is a gun store. Convenient. We break in and take stuff. Maeda comments...
cops are looting.
Yeah.
I thought that's the one thing cops are supposed to stop is looting.
Maeda comments, he's like, wow, I'd heard that it was really easy to get a gun in America, but like, goddamn, there's a lot of interesting anti-gun shit in this game. I like it.
So much.
There's a whole subplot I might get to later. Maeda is like, hey, I want to do science stuff. Is there a lab somewhere? We decided to go to the museum because that jerk-ass guy had a real sweet lab and is probably evacuated. We go up to the lab, and sure enough, he's gone. Maeda does some science. Basically, Bulma had some Eve goop on her clothes yesterday, so he's going to inspect it. He pricks his own blood and puts it in the goop and looks in a microscope. We look after him. oh fuck, we can clearly see that the little mitochondria from the goop are attacking the nucleus of his blood cells. Wild. He explains that some weird mutations are allowing this to happen. He says a lot more than that. I'm saying that he says it's just some weird mutations allowing this to happen. Bulma puts her blood in there to test it. Sure enough, her own mitochondria beef up the nucleus with energy so that it can fight off the enemy mitochondria. Maeda says that, frankly, this makes sense. Genes naturally seek to propagate themselves, so obviously her mitochondria would kill the enemy one with different DNA. So really the question is more like, why does everyone else's mitochondria not do that? Suddenly, the jerk scientist shows up. He's like, get out of my swamp. We have a big argument, but whatever. But then Daniel looks over at the guy's computer and sees ... his son's name and his ex-wife's? What? What was this scientist doing with his family's names on the screen of his computer? Weirdly, at this point, the scientist is like, seriously, I'm angry. Get the fuck out of my room. This is my property and this is my area. So we all just leave. Whatever. After we leave, he's all, it's too late. I wrote, it's too late. Han, even though he's not portrayed as French. I don't know why I wrote that. Maybe he was getting late.
As she's leaving, doesn't Aya say something along the lines of, I think I know that man from...
That's true. I think she does say that. Yeah.
It's implied, again, that he's the dude from her flashbacks.
That's true. Then we decided to go back to the precinct. On the way there, Maeda says that the list was a, quote, HLA list, aka a compatibility list for, organ transplants and stuff. What? We don't know more about that, but that's what it was. Anyway, we go back to the station. After this point, I'm going off the top of my brain because I forgot to take notes. Luckily, it's not that complicated. So we get back to the station and... Wait, hold on. I did take notes. I guess it didn't save or something. That's annoying because I remember writing this. We get back to the station and there's no one at the front desk and everything is trash. There's clearly been an attack. Clearly shit has gone down here. So, right off the bat, Daniel is like... Ben! So he runs off to save his son. We go to explore and make sure we don't miss any treasure chests. We explore. We go to the room, just like the cop room, like the main room that you see in the
movies. Cop room at the police station.
The main cop room with all the desks where they all do their normal cop work.
The office.
The office. But the shared open office that you would see from old cop movies or from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, that room, right? That room's beautiful, by the way. One of my favorite free-rendered rooms in the game. And that's saying a lot because the game's full of them. We go in there, and there's no one there. We go into the police chief's room, and there's no one there. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop exploring. There's clearly just no one anywhere. I'm going to actually just try and actually save the child who is probably going to be dying any second now. And sure enough, there are now battles so this is a dungeon now. This is a dungeon, which I love it when a place is established as a safe zone and then later it's not. Always a good trick. Although once again, it's usually better to do that towards the end of the story, dramatically. We've only been to the police station once at this point, so it's a little funny. This game blows its dramatic wads sometimes a little bit prematurely.
Also, if you've played Resident Evil 2, you're expecting to be fighting monsters in a police station. You're frankly surprised you haven't been doing it all along. I actually don't know if Resident Evil 2 was out when this game came out, but you know.
Yeah. So anyway, we're fighting through the police station, and there's a couple of optional scenes that I will skip. There's one involving the gun lady, except I didn't set that up with her earlier scene, so I can't. It won't make sense if I follow it up. Basically, all that happens is you go through a dungeon and have a lot of interesting, well-written, characterful interactions with some of the various cops. The ones that haven't died, a lot of them have died. You also find some secret zones and get lots of good treasure. One guy, he dies, but then he says, here's the key, that you can go back and open his locker to get some new to get some new equipment, blah, 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 right? Whatever. But eventually you find out that, yes, Ben, the dog, did in fact run off. And Ben ran to go chase after the dog. So there's monsters everywhere, but the kid's like, I'm oblivious to danger. I'm just going to run and chase this dog that definitely isn't going to turn into a monster and try to kill me. So we go chase after him into a new part of the station that we haven't been to yet. We do more exploring. And basically, eventually, there's a cutaway scene where we see the kid in a dramatic-looking room, and Police Chief Baker is there. And this is where the game, I think, a little bit doesn't follow through on its drama, because, again, the setup of kid, dog, danger, brilliant, terrifying, nail-biting stuff. But when they finally resolve it, it's not that dramatic. Basically, the kid is in a room, and the dog is there, and the dog starts like coughing blood, and he's like, oh no, but then Baker's there, and Baker is like, Ben, get away from the dog, it's not safe. So Ben's like, what? No, we gotta help the dog. And then Baker's like, no. So Baker grabs the kid and drags him away from the dog, and then a second later the dog transforms into a hideous Cerberus beast. I'll get to that in a second, but it transforms into a beast, so it's like the kid's already out of danger. It's like they could have done a lot more with that. So anyway, on to the scary dog, though. Basically, it does a lot of transformations, but the main thing is that its head, it turns into a Cerberus, right? But it doesn't do that by, like, growing 2 more heads. No. Its existing head splits into 3 heads. Like, it trifurcates. And in the middle of where it just literally opened up its fleshy self, in between the 3 heads, is
another mouth.
Is a circle mouth, a circle teeth mouth, which is everyone's that's
least
like just
favorite
scary,
mouth.
like the least favorite kind of mouth. Yes. So you got 3 heads, all with mouths, and then the circle parasite mouth in the middle of where the 3 necks are conjoined together. It rules. Also, it's enormous, which is both cool and a problem, as we'll see in a second. So a second later, Aya shows up. Once again, Baker's on the other end of the room protecting the kid. He's shooting it, and he's like, oh no, I ran out of bullets. And it's slowly, very slowly walking towards Baker, obviously waiting for us to show up and save him. So we show up and save him. There's a boss battle. Again, didn't find it very difficult, but it was very frustrating because it has an all attack that is literally unavoidable. And then other attacks that aren't unavoidable, but like pretty tough.
And it does the like Chrono Trigger thing where one of the heads heals the others, but its animation wasn't good enough to tell me which head did it. So I was just trying to rotate which head I was shooting and shoot them hard and fast enough until the healing
when that happened
stopped.
to me, I saw the amount that it healed them and was like, the amount that it healed them wasn't too much compared to the damage I'm doing. I'm just going to keep shooting the one I'm already shooting.
I've tried doing that, and it was the wrong thing to do for me. Also, I'm pretty sure as you kill heads, the attacks get stronger because, like, at one point I had killed 2 of the 3 heads, and then it would, like, shoot a laser at me, and I wouldn't dodge it, and it'd do, like, 90 damage, which is, like, half my health, and I would die.
Damn. I don't think I ever got hit by that laser, so I'm not sure. The other attacks, I'm not sure. It's kind of a dumb fight, but whatever. It's also a pretty good time. You have a cool new gun in this area, by the way. The gun is a machine gun, and it shoots a whole bunch of bullets per round. But the weird thing is you don't get to aim. You don't get to pick who you attack. So when you attack, it just shoots a number of shots at random enemies. Which you might realize is great when you're fighting, say, a boss that is only one enemy, because then it doesn't matter that it's random because you just shoot the enemy. But if you're fighting multiple enemies, it's like, well, no, I want to strategize and just shoot one of them. Anyway, that gun I actually switched to that gun partway through this battle, and it was a good decision. Also, it's got pretty short range, but it's cool. Also, this game has a system where you can basically, it's like crafting, but it's very limited crafting, and I actually like how it works. Basically, you can completely disassemble one weapon and then take one useful ability or stat from that weapon and put it onto a different weapon, which is really simple, and I think it's cool. So like, yeah, you might get a weapon that actually seems like it has worse stats than your current gun, but weirdly enough, it actually has a better bonus stat. Every gun has like a base attack, firing rate, and ammo, but then it has like a bonus applied to it. Like it might be like 18 plus 1 or 20 plus 2 or 34 plus 0, right? So you might get a weapon where all the stats are lower, but its bonus array is like plus 2 plus 3 plus 2. So you can take that bonus array and put it onto your better weapon, right? You can only take the entire bonus array. You can't take just the better number. So if 2 of the numbers are better and 1 of them's worse, you got to make that decision. Anyway, it's actually pretty neat. So you can do things like, oh yeah, this game does have leveling up. When you level up, your stats automatically go up, and you also get bonus points, and the bonus points can be allocated however you feel like it. You can increase your health, you can increase your inventory space, which rules, or you can make your weapons better, which is weird. Like, why am I going to spend level up juice on making a weapon better? What if I stop using that weapon? Right? Like, come on, that's dumb. Though I can see how it's useful in a pinch. This game is not about min-maxing long-term. It's about doing what you need to do to get through that part, which is cool. And I like it. Anyway, we beat it, and we saved the day, and isn't that just it?
Pretty much. I think there's a short scene where Ben and Daniel see each other and are like, "You're okay," and then I think it just ends. Yeah,
I remember it being a little sudden. It was like, what? Yeah. It's day 4 now? All we did, like the amount of stuff we did, not even like as players, but like in-game diegetically, didn't take nearly as long, right? We just were, well, maybe Bulma woke up late. Maybe she slept a long time because she was injured from her previous days fighting. But yeah, like we just scavenged for supplies, briefly yelled at a scientist guy, and then had this short dungeon, but whatever. So that's day 3. We're going to see what happens next. Next, like I said, there's day 4, 5, 6. We're going to finish the game for next week. And hell yeah, let's play some... What music should we play here? How about the boss battle music?
Cool.
Boss battle music's good.
Mm-hmm.
Moments. Yeah.
Okay. So I have sort of a lot. One thing that sort of stood out to me is that characters have words in all caps in their dialogue to show stress on words, but sometimes the stress is weird.
It is weird sometimes.
Like, I believe early on when Eve is saying bullshit, I is like, I don't understand you.
Yeah. I remember that.
Also, just, you know how video games just sort of are all rated G? People take the Lord's name in vain in this game, and I enjoy that.
It's cool. It's really cool to have people say, which that's cool for 2 reasons. One, it's cool to have people cuss in a game, especially a Japanese role-playing game, but also it's cool because this takes place in the real world. So they say Jesus. They're not saying,
which of course you wouldn't want them saying that in a fantasy game.
They're not saying
that would be weird.
They're not saying like by the goddess. So it's cool. I really love that too.
Yeah. Let's see. All the environments on this game are great. I'll let Maddy cover that more. I'm sure she has more to say about that than I do. So I like how this game sort of cuts around needless stuff. Like the first time you go to the museum, they do this great like scene setting where you talk to the security guard. He lets you in, you sign in, you go up to the lab. It's all very good, very moody. But then when you return, I don't remember exactly what parts are cut out, but basically you show up you click on the museum and then you're in the lab.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of games, especially games from this era, would have had you walk through all that again, even though you don't need to this time. You've already had the scene set.
Yeah. And also, that first time when they set the scene is really important because if you understand how these fucking video games work, that place is probably going to have monsters in it later, and it's going to be a dungeon. So again, we're doing that really cool foreshadow and then later dual purposing the level geometry, which is so cool. And also a great use of, again, limited budget capacity.
Yeah. So one thing I found funny was, so Aya's busting up Carnegie Hall and she bursts into a dressing room and there's a guy in a jester outfit and he's like, "Oh, fuck. Everything I have is on the table. You can take it." And she's like, No, I'm a cop. You're not in danger. You're never in danger when there's a cop." And he runs off to get out of there. And she exits and then, you hear a scream. And then she exits, and there's a burned body on the screen that wasn't there before, and you can go over and investigate it. And she says, I don't know if I have this exact because I didn't write it down at the time, but she's like, "This is that clown from earlier."
Yep. It sounds like she's just dunking on him.
I found that really disrespectful.
Yep. Every time a character says something like that, I always imagine Snake in MGS1 saying, "You're that ninja." She's like,
"You're that clown.
You're that clown." Yeah.
That clown went and got himself
Holy
burnt
shit,
up.
Sam shared some art from the game's art book, and it's hot.
It's a lot.
Like, okay, so they're embracing lesbianly, but Eve is literally biting Aya's ear, which is like, that is way hornier. Like usually you're expecting, like subdued passions, not like literal fucking right in front of you. That's holy shit. That's an official art piece. Holy moly. Whew, getting the vapors over here.
So also, just a couple fun facts about the game that I don't think we've said yet. This was Squaresoft's first M-rated game. Nice. And this game has never been released in Europe, unfortunately.
That's a shame.
Oh.
Not even on PSN, apparently.
I gotta say, the game is rated M, I believe, because as the plot, mostly because of all the gross body horror stuff and the blood, but also because as the plot develops, it ends up having a lot more stuff about like just semen and just like body shit, and that's actually why I got rated M. And I'm like, you know what? If you're gonna be rated M anyway, then why not have them do more cursing? Like, come on. Like,
say fuck words.
Like you're trying to do the 80s action movie thing. I mean, one of those famous lines from Die Hard is "Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker," right? Or like those cop movies. Like, come on. Like, they should be cussing a lot more if it's rated M. If it was rated T, I'd forgive it, right? But like, come on.
But they do say Jesus.
Yep. One memorable moment I actually don't have a whole lot. I thought I had more, but most of my screenshots are just graphics, which are beautiful. I will say I emulated this game. I already owned the game on PSN, but I don't have a current way to play the game that I own on PSN. So I emulated it. And I'm using OpenEMU with some of the built-in filters. Now, you don't get crazy control over your filters like you do with RetroArch, which is a shame, but the built-in filters are really good. And I was having a real good time with the CRT. I added like a curvature to it and all this stuff. But I also experimented with some other filters, and both of y'all look at this. I think I sent this to one of you, but look at this fucking filter I was playing with. And this is not just the default. This is, I modified a lot of its settings as well. It's uploading. Sorry.
Dude.
Yeah, you sent that to me.
It looks so
Love it
cool. No, I think it's awesome.
It does.
I would have kept it on for the whole game, except it does make parts of it a little unplayable. But yeah, basically it's completely black and white, and so it's the VCR setting, and it actually has, you can't see it in a static image, but it has those VCR lines that go from the top to the bottom constantly.
So good.
Sadly, there's not a setting to turn that down, because I thought it's a good effect, but it was a bit much. It was like too much to be realistic, but you can't turn that down. So you've got that, but then also it's got like a wibble wobble back and forth like a VCR does. But I also turned up the film grain, so it's grainy. Oh, and I changed the contrast so the whites are all blown out. So it just looks like you're watching a really old VHS on a really old black and white TV, and it looks like shit, and it looks super cool. Also, that first screenshot I shared, one of the best shots in the game. When we're in the lab the second time, and the scientist that we thought was probably not there shows up, there's a close-up. There's a shot where Aya is right in the middle of the screen, Daniel is to the right edge of the screen, and both of them have their guns pointed to the right at someone who's off screen, and it's incredible 4:3 composition. I love it. Which again, well, I guess that's not like old movies, but it is like old cop shows, right? Like it's very wow, I can't believe we got through this whole thing without either of us, Sam or Bernard, either of us quoting in that one episode of NYPD Blue.
What's the line?
You should leave now.
Oh my god, my brain just exploded.
We all took the same film class at college.
Oh my god, that had completely left my brain.
There's an editing project where you have to edit. You're given the raw footage of a scene from in this show NYPD Blue, and we have to edit it together using good rules of editing. And first of all, it's great. That's a great show. Very well written. And acted, but also, like, you know, when you watch the same cut 5 billion times, it becomes very uncanny, right? And every single thing about it just starts to feel weird and off because none of the characters feel like human beings anymore. So, and one of the characters talks with his eyebrows.
Yes.
Anyway, whatever. Other than the graphics, which is a shame because, like, I'm sharing it with you, but I can't actually share it with the listeners, but whatever. My only mem is there's a when you're in the zoo, there's this great part where you go into the zoo area, and it's like where you mentioned earlier, the broken glass, but you can read the plaques, like the plaques that you have in the zoos, and the plaques are all really funny because they're just telling us like what animals are in the zoo. But this is a game about creatures being mutated into freakish monsters, and the glass is broken. So they're just like, isn't it cool that we have this bird and yeah, we're like getting attacked by zombie birds, right? And then the final one says, look for the brown monkey, one of our mini playful rainforest friends. And as soon as I read that, I was like, oh fuck, there's going to be a giant fucking monkey at some point in this goddamn dungeon. And there was later on in the dungeon.
And they have boomerang arms.
Yeah, they do. But yeah, good. I just look for the brown monkey, one of our many playful friends. And I'm like, oh no, really good foreshadowing. Though again,
and it steals Aya's hat, and then she takes more damage.
Hate that shit. Hate when that happens. The final thing I wanted to talk about was the gun subplot. But if Sam wants to talk about that, if that was one of yours, then you can cover it.
It was not one of mine, but it was really good.
Well, you talk about yours, and then maybe I'll talk about it.
Okay, so early on, we go into the sewers, and there's a part where like you're coming up to a like there's like stairs on either side of you, and so I am trying to go fast in the game because I didn't have a lot of time this week, and so I was like, I'm not going to explore all the things. So I go up the stairs because that seems like where it would want you to go.
That fucking part.
So So you go up the stairs, and it's just this little turnaround. But to go up the stairs, it has to change the camera angle, which then shows the ground below you, and you see a couple treasure chests there. Then when you backtrack, because that's not the way to go, and you go along the water at the bottom, the camera angle doesn't change, but those chests are still there. And so it's like, if you remember where they were placed behind the weird pillars and everything, like which pillars had chests behind them, you were rewarded for that. And this game does a lot of chest hiding like that, which is really cool.
There's a later part in the game as well where you can see a chest from a certain angle, but once you get to the chest, you can't see it anymore, and you just have to remember that it was there from when you saw it a second ago. Funny little thing that it does there. It's cool.
Yeah. The other one I have is these 6 days were the most important to me. Whatever cutscene is just jaw-droppingly beautiful. Like,
yeah,
I have never played this game. The most I had interacted with this game was just watching the trailer over and over again on Demo Disc 8 for the PlayStation 1. And so I did not know that. I can't remember what. It's like a GDC talk or something where somebody was talking about how low poly is better than anything else. And one of their proofs was this gorgeous shot of New York City with like a boat going across it, and you can see its reflection and all of this stuff. And that's from this game. And it's great. And it's so good. It's the best thing on the PlayStation. And I know I said that about the Fate boss fight from Chrono Cross like 4 weeks ago, but I changed my mind. This is it for real.
Okay, so like as far as 3D graphics, I would say the most beautiful game on the PlayStation. Like, it's funny, I can't think of a single game that I would say is a contender for most beautiful game on the PlayStation that isn't by Square, which is pretty impressive. There could be some. I can't.
Metal Gear Solid isn't by Square.
I would say that it's extremely effective. And it's impressive in its visual things. I wouldn't call it aesthetically beautiful or anything like that. That wouldn't not there. But anyway, as far as 3D graphics goes, Vagrant Story is one of the most beautiful 3-dimensional video games ever made. Somebody, I forget who, wrote a lengthy article about how it actually makes incredible use of textures. And how here's what it is. Most of the people who made the game didn't have any experience with 3D, but they were highly experienced 2D pixel artists. They were incredible at making sprites and at making tiles. So the sprite work that is the textures on the 3D models are what makes them look so amazing. And that's what puts that game above every other 3D game of the era. Anyway, so that game's on its own other level. But as far as like games that have 2D pre-rendered backgrounds, I would say FF8 is the most like technically mind-blowing in what it does with the technology and how it pushes the boundaries of like combining FMV and gameplay, and also just how it has it sort of defeats you by pure brute force. But as far as just aesthetic artistry, this might be the most beautiful game on the entire console. It's really high up there.
Like every single shot, it's like they knew, hey, we're going to have a bunch of boring like public spaces. It's all going to be a lot of office buildings. This can get really boring really quick. So let's throw Tetsuya goddamn Nomura at it so that every fucking space is perfectly cluttered. There's so much like storytelling in the tiny details all over these things.
Yeah.
Because it's not a fucking mage tower. So it can't just be cool looking because it's cool looking. It's like, oh no, Aya lives in a goddamn like shitty apartment with no heat and has to have a fucking fire, like trash can fire to keep warm for some goddamn reason. And it's like everything is great, and I fucking love it. It's
the clutter in this game is beautiful.
At risk of sounding like an incredible motherfucker, the mise en scène, amazing.
Yes.
What it is though is the thing.
It really is.
But yeah, no, the clutter especially, like the PlayStation, this PlayStation especially blew me away. It has these incredible lived in sets. It looks the same way that a movie does. When a movie, you can tell they really cared a lot about their about their set design,
which goes perfectly into my next one, which is when you first get to the police station, if you go to Aya's desk to save, she has a police sketch of Melissa on her desk, because of course she would. She's the prime suspect in a big ass murder case that Aya's working. Of course she would have Melissa's police sketch on her desk.
That's all.
Nice. I didn't get that.
There's shit like that all over the place.
And when you have the press event, there's like a big chalkboard on the wall, and it's got all these out of screen. You can barely even see it, but there's like these diagrams of like Melissa and Eve and mitochondria with these like arrows connecting each other and stuff like that, where clearly like the cops have been having like a meeting trying to figure stuff out, right?
What is the weakness?
What is the weakness? Yeah, just wonderful. And you know what? I would say that it's drawn, right? It's not literally set design, but no, because these are pre-rendered backgrounds and they assemble those in 3D. So this is a 3D space that someone constructed and then, took a picture of it for the sake of the game. So just like environmental artists in this game, motherfucker. Like, it's not just that it's beautiful and it's in genre, right? Like it's doing its genre tribute thing perfectly.
So well. Yeah.
And again, as Bernard said earlier, it's weird how the Shimomura music definitely sounds like it's composed by the same person who composed Mario RPG 2 years prior, and yet it's so different. And yet it also definitely sounds like the same thing. Like if they made a sequel to Mario RPG that was like a little scarier, this is what the music would be like.
Yeah. Me and Summer love spooky things, and we also love Christmas, and so we're trying to like Advent calendar do something Christmassy every day. So our Christmas thing this week has been playing Parasite Eve together, and so I would be like voice acting all the different people, giving them different voices, so like she could check her phone and still know what's going on because it's a game without voice acting and stuff. And every time someone would talk about mitochondria, I would weave into the line using like my shitty writing skill to make it sound like they actually said powerhouse of the cell. Or look up every fucking time. That's
really funny.
Great.
Also, I gotta say, I'm really proud of Square because every other game company in this era was jumping on the voice acting train. Like Metal Gear Solid, the game that both this and Vagrant Story are, and I cannot stress this enough, so very obviously trying to be inspired by, and like it's not just like, hey, this is the thing I know, so obviously this thing, like, no, the game was a goddamn sensation. Actually, MGS probably wasn't because it came out the same year, but Vagrant Story was. But like they're obviously going for this thing, but Square never put voice acting in their games on the PSX. Like, but it's fine. Like, I think that, if Capcom had made Parasite Eve, I don't say they already did, I'm just saying, if Capcom had made Parasite Eve, it would have had voice acting. If Konami had made Parasite Eve, it would have had voice acting. But they're like, nah, we grew up in the era where we were making these good, powerful, emotional stories with just text only, and we're sticking to it. And that's cool.
Mm-hmm. And I love it. But
and that made Final Fantasy X hit really hard when suddenly Square was like, yeah, we're doing voice acting now.
Yeah, that's what made Final Fantasy X such a shocking change in their style, because I mean, Square is always like, one thing that's so cool about Square is like they're always innovating, and yet as much as they innovate, they also know when to stick to their guns. Like how we always say FF7 is really just an SNES game with some fancy tricks, right? It's like perfect combination of sticking to your guns and but also having incredible new ideas. Like for example, the fact that the PE in this game, it's just magic. Your spells are just slow, haste, cure. Barrier's really interesting, actually. That's a unique one. Also, your magic recharges. I should have said that earlier. Your magic recharges, which really takes the edge off the whole survival horror thing, because you do have a heal spell, and your magic does recharge really fast.
Yeah. But another thing, speaking of playing it with Summer. So to reference the fact that I talked about Cleveland show before we started recording, another Cleveland show bit is there's an episode where he meets up with his stalker, and he wakes up chained to the bed butt naked, and it takes him an incredibly long time to realize that she has stolen his jizz to impregnate herself. And when he finally says it, he goes, "Oh no, she jacked me," by which I mean she stole something she stole my essence. And so when you get to Maeda talking about she acquired his semen, we bust out laughing and quoted that Cleveland show bit, and it's good and it's great. And I'm slowly checking off all of the jokes to tell Maddy so she doesn't have to ever watch it.
Hell yeah, love that.
I interpreted Maeda's description of that as she jacked him.
Yeah.
But who can say?
Who can say?
Yeah, it could have been a lot of things. It's just very. I'm wondering what the original Japanese line was, and wondering if that was some very, very tastefully written censorship on the shit.
So, perhaps.
Oh, also, other than the issue Bernard mentioned earlier, which I agree with, it is weird. Great localization in this game.
Oh, it's so good.
Fucking perfect. It's just I have no complaints at all except for that one minor one.
I vaguely remember reading when I was looking things up about this game that this, much like Secret of Evermore, was a baby of both houses. So it was made a lot in Square of America as well as in Square over there. And so its localization team, like, they were involved a lot sooner than 2 weeks before release, like Final Fantasy VII and stuff. I think I read that somewhere. Don't quote me on it. It could be completely wrong, but it's what I had read somewhere. But
hell yeah,
a couple other cool ones. So you're making your way through the police station, and you see a cutscene where Ben is like, "Hey, I don't know what danger is. Let me follow this dog." And you're like, "No, stop." And then you talk to an NPC, and he gives you a key that unlocks a place at the beginning of the dungeon. So you just let Ben go do his thing, and you turn your ass around and go back and grab it. And so the second time it happens, Shiva has transformed. It is like time is ticking. Like an action game would have put up a timer or something to be like, you have to go and save the kid. And you talk to this guy and who you see earlier in the game, he's like hiding in his locker, and he's like, "My precious," basically. It's like, "Oh, I'm so glad I have this. It's so important to me." Blah 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 blah. And he doesn't let you see what it is. So you find him, and he's like, "Hey, this was important to me. I want you to have it. It's in my locker." So you go there, and it's a trading card. And if you examine it in the menu, it says just a normal playing card, or just a normal trading card. It will probably do something. I hope it doesn't, though. I hope it's like
you actually missed it. You can talk to the gun guy, give him a trading card, and he does something cool to your gun.
Oh, cool. Well, yeah, I was hoping
it actually already happened, but I guess you missed it. You can go back and get it later.
I mean, yeah, I didn't go back to after I got the trading card. I didn't go back to the.
Oh no, you can get it before. You could have gotten it before that. Anyway, yeah, it's just
because you have to unlock it, and he's right at the end. You have to unlock his locker, and he's right at the end of the thing.
No, I'm saying this whole scene where the guy tells you what a trading card is at the beginning when you first get to the police station. It's an optional scene.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
but
I didn't have any trading cards, but he told me what they were.
Okay, but so yeah, I was hoping that it never did anything. So it's just like, you let this kid get killed by a dog to go and get a dumbass trading card from a locker, and it would be great. But alas, it's a collectible. Speaking of the police station, in day 2, you spend a lot of time exploring the police station and finding out where the quote unquote item shop is and where the quote unquote weapon shop is, and all of these things to figure out all of your bearings. Day 3 starts, and it teaches you and it shows you a new weapon shop and a new item shop, and the person who has played a video game before says, "Oh no, this means that something bad is going to happen to the police station and I can't go back." Because I got a little lost there. I didn't know where we were headed, so I went to the police station first, and you can explore the whole thing, and there's like nothing bad going on because you haven't got to that part of the plot yet. I'm like, why did they give me a new item shop if this one's still, oh no, they're all gonna die, all of my friends are dead. And then there it is. And then finally my last one, so when Maeda first shows up and he's talking to the cops, and one of the cops starts speaking in Japanese, and in Japanese he's like, hey, do you speak Japanese? Is this easier for you? What's your name? Like, where, who are you? Where are you going? And Maeda is like, oh shit, it's actual Japanese. Well, now I can't think of any Japanese words to answer you. And it's a great bit where the cop is like overly like, oh, you obviously are struggling, let me help you. But then Maeda's too much of a dumbass to actually answer in Japanese.
I was wondering what the Japanese was there.
As someone who is almost bilingual, that's sort of just what being multilingual is like. You find you can't say anything in either language.
Yes. And it's great.
He just has issues with talking to people. That's all it is.
He really does.
I just thought of another memorable moment. One thing that helps like make this game feel grounded in the real world and grounded in science is that they actually like name drop a real scientist and his real science thing. The problem is it's Richard Dawkins, and I don't think that name carries the same weight now as it did in 1990.
Yeah, they dropped the selfish. They dropped the selfish gene, and I'm just like, even though,
have you heard Richard Dawkins' theory of his jar of honey? That's all I'm thinking of.
Oh God!
Have you heard Richard Dawkins' tweets?
Wait. Let's close this out with the classic Richard Dawkins tweet. Let's see. Richard Dawkins. Do you know the one about fat bitch?
Yes, I've heard that one, yes.
Yeah, imagine it. Yeah, this game is like, oh yeah, famous scientist Richard Dawkins, and all I think is, ahem. Saw a Down and Out in Seattle last night. His sign said not, I need food, or I need a job, but I need a fat bitch. What could this mean?
What I was thinking of was Bin Laden has won in airports of the world every day. I had a little jar of honey, now thrown away by rule-bound Dundridges. Stupid waste.
God, so what a fucking G. I would say that he owns actually, except he's a terrible person who has terrible beliefs and views, which is a shame because he's a top tier poster.
Anyway, does anyone have any final thoughts? Maddie, did you want to talk about the little gun subplot?
Not really. The game just has some cool stuff about how guns are bad, and I like it, but I don't feel like going through the whole subplot.
Yeah, this has gone a bit long.
Yeah. But join us next week when we finish this game. I'll release it on New Year's Day, and then we'll be back to our normal release schedule. But,
little tip. For the love of God, please rotate your saves in this game. It will become increasingly important that you rotate your saves. Okay, don't make the same mistake I did last time I played this game. Okay, thank you.
I also made that mistake last time I played this game, and I've never actually beaten this game because of that.
Wait, was it the you can cut this if you want, the Statue of Liberty boss fight?
Probably.
I haven't seen what happens, and I haven't gotten past day 5 of this game.
I just remember one of the final bosses I couldn't get past.
Yep.
Fun.
Now I feel good because I'm really dumb, but you're smart. So if you did it too, I don't feel as bad.
Dope. Okay, I'm dropping a note to cut that.
Yeah. I just didn't want to spoil it. There's a cool fight in a certain location.
Yeah, so if you like what you hear, you can check us out on the web at www.rpgbook.club. And I have a link to all of our socials, including our Discord, which is where all of our cool friends hang out. And you also can donate to keep the lights on and help us buy video games. In 2 weeks, we'll be back to Septerracore. We didn't announce where we were stopping in Septerracore, so remind me to do that next week when we're actually coming back to the game.
I'll
We're stopping
remind
in
you to announce
Scumtown,
where we
but-
stop so that you can change it later.
Yes. So far, we're 2 for 2 of picking a spot and then being wholly underprepared for how much that was. But yeah. So for RPG Book Club Christmas, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm Maddy Grace Webben.
I'm David Bernard Houck.
God bless us, everyone.
Season's greetings, everyone.
Bye. She has the range, and even it feels sort of funny saying this because this game's music kind of actually sounds like a Mario RPG, except spooky.